So good to have that intro song up and humming again, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Hoops and Homers. 2 weeks removed for good reason. You know, I had to go have some fun. As much as I love you guys and love streaming on Saturday mornings, I needed to go and just have some fun myself. And so it was Rockies Fest week last week, which is why I was not here. First, let's make sure our audio is working. You know, hey, it's working. Cool. All right. Anyway, like I said, last week, it was Rockies Fest week, so I took the week off for that reason. That was a fun event. I'd actually never been to Rockies Fest before, and so it was just good to get out there to the ballpark again. Obviously, it's good to be at Coors Field, but in this very unique setup, it was also kind of interesting because I, quite honestly, although I might have been able to guess, I did not know Coors Field is so dang huge. It's massive. We got to walk pretty much in all the areas that you don't get to walk if you purchase normal admission during the season. And so we got to go see the clubhouse. For those of you who don't know what Rockies Fest is or what you get to do there, we got to wander around the stadium. We got to go down to the clubhouse to see where the players keep all their stuff. We got to see the upper club and suite levels where a lot of other stuff happens. We got to see some fun games with the players. We got to hear some press conferences with the players and with front office and coaching personnel. It was a fantastic time. And so if you're a Colorado Rockies fan in the state or even out of state, because there were some out of state Rockies fans who came to visit too, I would highly recommend going to Rockies Fest next season in 2027. So it was a great time. My wife and I had a phenomenal time going around, seeing a lot of different things, variety of different things in the stadium. And it was a good time, man. I had tons of fun. That's why I wasn't here last week. But let me tell you, we have a lot to talk about this week. This might be my most favorite episode that we've done so far on Hoops and Homers because there's just a lot happening. It's the end of January, believe it or not. Okay. Nuggets season is kind of hitting the point of the season where there are some things that need to be done. The injury situation is still certainly contributing to some decisions that have to be made about if anyone's going to get traded with the trade deadline coming up this week and otherwise. And so there's just a lot of things that the Nuggets have going on in February and March as they build towards the postseason starting in mid to late April. And so on the Nuggets front, that's what we have to talk about. On the Rockies front, we have a lot of other stuff to talk about too. Okay, we got some early season predictions for this team. And we're going to do a very comprehensive analysis of just exactly what has happened this offseason, taking a look a little bit at last season, but for the most part, keeping that in the rearview mirror. And working based off of what's happened this offseason, we're going to talk about everything that's happened and how it will, not might, how it will impact the 2026 Colorado Rockies. I've had way too many conversations with Rockies fans, not necessarily at Rockies Fest, mostly online. Take that at what it's worth, but a lot of Rockies fans who are just sour on the 2026 improvement of this team. And it's just the same old silly arguments. Oh, the ownership is terrible. Oh, the talent isn't good. Oh, we have one of the worst farm systems in baseball. It's like, okay, but you're not looking at what I'm looking at. And so if you're watching this stream, you're going to get some information that pretty much nobody is talking about, and it's going to be broken out for you in a way that no one can break it out for you as well. So we've got that coming up today as well. But we're going to start with our beloved Denver Nuggets, man. The man himself returned last evening, Nikola Jokic. And while we still have a decent amount of role players on the shelf with injuries, it's just good to see him back out on a basketball court for the first time in several weeks, or maybe even over a month at this point. And so obviously the Nuggets won last night against the Clippers. We're going to talk about the last few weeks here actually as well, since we didn't have a stream last week. And for those of you who might not have seen last week's stream, we made a little change in the way we talk about the Nuggets here on Hoops and Homers. We're going to break out a lot more of the statistical information that you get from these games, but I updated the spreadsheet that we saw last time. It was a little bit messy last time, and I wanted it to be a lot more presentation friendly. And so this is the spreadsheet we're working with. If we hop on over to H&H HQ, okay, this is our Nuggets tracker. Now, if we go back to the last week that we talked about here, January 10 through 16, this was a lot messier, like I said. And so really the things that we want to focus on with the Nuggets, we want to see on a week-to-week basis who's in the rotation. And for me, this is anyone getting double-digit minutes worth of playing time. Okay, so this is not everyone who played. during the period of the 10th to the 16th, but it is everyone who matters. If you take a look at these minutes, you'll see that. Okay, so we want to talk about the players who played during the week. We want to talk about these various statistics. We'll get into that in a second. I also created this little player rating tracker, so you can actually see relative to the rest of the team who is playing better, who is playing worse, and whose contribution is generally the same week by week. Based on the results that the team had and based on these statistics. Okay. Then we also want to take a look at this team's performance, the Nuggets team's performance compared to the league over that specific period of time. So that's what this information here is going to tell us. We'll walk through that again later on. And then here we want to see the opponents that we played this week, as well as how strong those teams have been offensively and defensively over the last 2 weeks before the Nuggets played them. Okay, so these are not season numbers. These are pretty much telling us how hot the teams that the Nuggets have played are for that given week. Okay, so now if we take a look at the 10th through the 16th again, you see this is kind of the situation we were left off with. We're going to start over with the player impact. That's pretty much what this rating is showing us. This rating shows us who is contributing the most overall positive, balanced impact to the Denver Nuggets for this particular week of action. And so if we go back to that last week that we talked about before I took the 2-week hiatus, you'll see AG was playing a lot better. Okay, we talked about that. A lot more balanced contribution this week. He started shooting the three a lot better, started scoring a lot more, even though he was only playing the 5th most minutes out of everyone in the rotation that week. Okay, so AG was the highlight of this week for sure. Pickett had played significantly worse than he had the previous week, but I mean, he played absolutely incredibly the week before. And so a little bit of a drop off was kind of expected, still playing pretty positively with respect to the minutes that he was getting. Tim Hardaway remained pretty consistent. He's been that consistent guy for this team in the rotation throughout the year. And so this is unexpected, or this is rather expected. And even though Jamal and Piwat played slightly worse than they had the weeks before, they played significantly better teams the weeks before. And so they really did have to do a lot more carrying. And so again, it makes sense that they didn't play as well as they did the week before, all things considered. But at the same time, we're still leading this Nuggets group up there now, I guess, with Aaron Gordon, going into the week of the 17th through the 23rd. That is the week that we haven't talked about yet. And so we'll get there. Starting now. This is kind of where they were going into the week of the 17th. And so if you'll notice, these are the predictions I made. I made these predictions saying that the Nuggets would sweep the upcoming week if they did these things. Soon found out that that's probably not the best way to talk about this particular information. Okay. It's hard to win 5 games in a row. It's hard to win 3 games in a row, honestly, especially if you're dealing with all the injuries that the Nuggets have. But nonetheless, these were the predictions I had for the Nuggets this upcoming, or that week of the 17th. Okay, I said they needed to get a better net rating here. Okay, they needed to bump this up to 5.5. Their offense was significantly better than the league during this particular week of the 10th, but the defense, even though the defense was a tad bit better, it's like you look at the offenses they played that week over here, and it's like, well, okay, this is an offensive rating that's 23rd to 26th in the league the last 2 weeks before the Nuggets played them. And this was a bottom 3 offense the week before the Nuggets played them. And Cooper Flagg got hurt in this game that they played against Dallas. And so we were kind of taking this defensive number with a grain of salt, even though they were kind of middle of the pack defensively that week. We were like, this is not an incredible defensive rating considering the offenses you played. Okay, so they needed to up this rating differential a little bit. They needed to play with some more pace. They're just not creating themselves very many opportunities. That simply said, without Nikola Jokic on the court and without a lot of these other contributors on the court as well. And so they've been playing a little bit slower. They bumped up the pace at which they were playing games compared to the week before, where this was like 93. So we said they needed to bump it up a little bit more as well. If they wanted to sweep the upcoming week, they needed more offensive rebounds. They needed more defensive rebounds. Okay. And they needed to keep their turnovers around where it had been for their season average. They had a really good turnover week. But again, playing some pretty mid teams here this week. So this is really incredible, but also kind of expected. The assists also needed to go up. We also said that they needed to shoot a little bit better from the field. They needed to take more threes and make more threes. Okay. That was the main thing we harped on the last time we talked about the Nuggets here on H&H. And that percentage is probably going to remain in the low to mid 40s if this team continues to shoot the 3 as well as they have been when they're actually shooting threes. Okay. And so free throws also, we kind of touched on, this is not as important for this team considering how much change that they've had. And so for me, you can get to the line, but considering you're not driving as much or playing as much in the paint as you would usually if you had Joker and Jonas out on the court at the 5, this is not something we emphasized a ton. Okay. They need to make their free throws. They should be making their free throws. And they've done that pretty well, even with the injuries that they've had. Okay. Top 7 in the league and top 10 in the league in attempts and free throw percentage. So this was good. Didn't really expect much to change with the fouls and the defense with the steals and blocks, again, because of the injuries. But this is what we said they needed to do. And this is the offensive and defensive ratings that I projected the Nuggets to have for this upcoming, the week of the 17th. So 2 weeks ago that they played against 5 teams. Okay. Could have been, I think it was almost 6. No, that would have been this week because the Grizzlies game got canceled on Sunday afternoon. Nonetheless, I thought the Nuggets would have a pretty solid week. I said they needed to have about a 118 offensive rating and a 112 defensive rating to sweep the week. And as we know, they did not sweep the week. Okay. They went 3-2, which is not terrible. Okay. Considering you played 4 defenses that were bottom 10 in the league and the same bottom 3 defense twice in 1 week, you might have thought that they would have had a little bit more momentum with the offense. And they did win those games against Washington, albeit they didn't really score very well in the game they played on the road against Washington. But they beat Milwaukee. Okay. In the 2 games that they played against pretty decent teams at home, they lost. Charlotte, people were very surprised the Nuggets lost to Charlotte. Okay, that Sunday afternoon, and they didn't just lose; they got absolutely obliterated. By the same score they lost to the Hawks earlier this month. But if you had taken a look, and we didn't do this in all fairness, if you had taken a look at how well the Charlotte Hornets had played the previous 2 weeks before they played the Nuggets, you might have had some different thoughts. Okay, top 10 offensive and defensive team the last 2 weeks were the Charlotte Hornets coming into that game against the Nuggets. So this blowout loss is a lot more explainable than we probably thought it was when that actually happened. The Lakers game was close. It was so unfortunate. Man, you go up by such a large number in the third quarter, and then you end up choking that lead away, mostly because you stopped shooting threes. It wasn't even that they weren't shooting threes well. It's just that they stopped shooting them. It's like this loss it was easily the worst of the 2, even though they got obliterated by the Hornets. They were winning pretty solidly against this Lakers team, and you really didn't feel like the Lakers were going to beat the Nuggets that evening on national television, and the Lakers just found a way to piece it back together and come away with an 8-point win. And so those were the 2 losses this week. But let's take a look at the contributions. Who played better this week than the previous week or from the previous time that they played? Okay, because you'll look here and you'll see Deron Holmes had 20 minutes, about 21 minutes per game the week of the 17th. He hadn't played the week before. And so we're comparing this to the last week that he played significant minutes for this team, which was the first week of the month. But okay, aside from that, who played better? It's interesting here. Peyton Watson and Jamal Murray actually played literally the same that they played the week before compared to their team. So you're getting consistent contributions out of Jamal and Peyton Watson. And for the most part, those are high-level contributions. All right. The reason they're highlighted yellow is because they didn't play every single one of these 5 games that week. So maybe that would have impacted their overall team contribution ratings had they played in every single game. But it's good that in the games that they played, which was most of them that week, they are consistently bringing that high level contribution. You look over here at Jamal Murray, right? 28 points per game, about 3 rebounds total per game, which is not incredible. 3 turnovers a game, but that's just because he has the ball in his hands so much. 6 assists per game. Okay, that's something he definitely has stepped up with in the absence of Nikola Jokic, which has been amazing. Then you see 55% from the field. You see 48% from 3. And so if you're getting this type of contribution from Jamal Murray on a week-to-week basis, you're not going to have complaints that this is not going up. Okay, you're not going to have complaints about that. He's playing very solidly. He doesn't really need to get more rebounds. That's not really his role right now, or at least in this week when there was no Nikola and when Jonas Valanciunas was just coming back from injury. So it's good to see that these 2 kind of held down the fort. Same thing with Peyton Watson, 21 points per game, 6 rebounds, relatively low turnovers for the amount of ball handling that he's been doing and the amount of minutes that he's playing. Assists, not really his role. 50% from the field, and then 50% from three. So you love the contributions you got out of P-Watt and Jamal the week of the 17th against these teams. At a minimum, just because they're consistently bringing high level contribution. Interesting to see also that Jamal is mostly shooting pull-ups in the 2-point range, and that Peyton Watson is mostly shooting pull-ups as well in the 2-point range, but he's also knocking down a significant amount of catch and shoot. And I think most of these catch and shoots are obviously from the 3-point line. And that's just a testament also to the fact that the Nuggets overall have an offensive scheme that works regardless of the personnel that is put in there by the coaching staff. You can also kind of see this up here too. If you compare the week of the 10th to the week of the 3rd, what you'd notice about Peyton Watson is that he was actually shooting more catch and shoot and less than 10 feet shots. So in the paint, and he was still putting up the relatively same amount of contribution. And so the fact that P-Watt can succeed beyond the 3-point line, when he's driving, when he's pulling up from the mid-range, it's just a testament not only to his improvement as a player, but also to the fact that the coaching staff is absolutely incredible at putting him in positions to succeed. And so you like these two. You like these two staying even and consistent at the top of the Nuggets' overall contribution. Okay. Spencer Jones had a much better week. We said he needed to have a better week on our last episode, and lo and behold, he came through. And it's not like a ton really changed here. He played a lot more minutes, didn't really score a significant amount of points more, if at all. Okay, right. Well, that's a grand total of 0.7 points per game more. Good work, Spencer. So this was relatively unchanged, but you look at the rebounding here, man. He's getting 5 boards a game. That's a solid contribution for a team that needs rebounders, considering they haven't had their centers for the last few weeks. He's not turning the ball over. He's shooting a good percentage from the field, and he shot 43% from three. Now, he didn't shoot 43% from three in the way that we wanted him to. Okay, we wanted him to take about 5 or 6 threes a game instead of 3 total. So the reason he shot better percentage-wise is because he took fewer threes. But overall, I guess that fit into the scheme of the offense this week in such a way that he was able to be a better overall contributor. And I guess it gave him more of an opportunity and more energy to go fight for rebounds, which is arguably the more important role that he would have needed to play over the last week. So good to see Spencer had a better week than he did the week before. Pickett had a worse week. Okay. He was playing the fourth most minutes. The points went down, man. He was not scoring as well. That's pretty significant. It's about 5 points worth of difference. Okay. Offensive rebounding, he wasn't getting in there for offensive rebounds as much. Defensively, he was getting more defensive rebounds, turning the ball over a little bit more than he was the week before, but not substantially. Overall, it just wasn't shooting well from the field. Okay. 34%, 30% from three, which was somehow better than the team average for this week. Okay. Don't ask me how that's the case. This was not a good 3-point shooting week for the Nuggets. But he shot 30% from the field, which is not good, even though it was good relative to the team. Okay. So Pickett did not have a good week, but he didn't have a terrible week. Okay. He filled in nicely in the minutes that he played at the starting point guard spot. AG, had a worse week compared to the previous week. Okay. But to be fair, number one, he didn't play every single game. That's why he's highlighted yellow here on our HQ. And, this is still a solid rating. This is the second best rating of anyone on the team in the games he played. And so we were really getting excited about the fact that he was finally working his way back into the rotation. He'd been playing so well since coming back from injury. And it's just unfortunate that he got hurt. And the news recently for him is that he'll be out for at least a month with a new hamstring strain. And so it's unfortunate that he has not been able to stay healthy. Similar to Christian Brown, but a little bit differently, because he was actually playing really, really well in all 3 phases of the game to start the season. Okay, he was shooting incredibly well from 3. He was playing incredibly well in the paint. He was still playing really solid defense. And so to not have him now for the next month is like, well, you get Nikola Jokic back, but you lose Aaron Gordon. That's probably a trade you would make, right? But it's just still unfortunate that he was starting to build up momentum, didn't really have that momentum carry over last week, and then eventually got hurt. Okay. Tim Hardaway is probably the most notable here. You see, Hunter Tyson had the largest change here in rating from the previous time that he played, which was 2 weeks ago, that's expected. He kind of got thrown in there because Aaron Gordon got hurt. But Tim Hardaway, he's been the model of consistency, like I even said a little bit earlier today. And so he had a down week. Mighty unfortunate for Tim, like a significant down week. Up here at 7 rating points and now down to -4 this week. Well, what went wrong with Tim? Okay, so he played significantly fewer minutes. Okay, like 9 minutes fewer. Not necessarily saying that that's the reason why he played worse. I think the play itself was the reason why he didn't get as many minutes, and that becomes pretty obvious here if you look at some of these shooting numbers. He just didn't have a good shooting week, similar to the rest of the team, just especially from 3. Considering most of his shots are 3-pointers, 67%, and most of those, 58%, are catch and shoot. Can understand why his contribution overall went down when he started not shooting very well during this particular period of time. Okay, 24% from 3. That's a completely different Tim Hardaway than the Tim Hardaway we've seen for the first few months of the season. But everyone's allowed to have a down week, and so this is pretty explainable. Okay, for Tim. I mean, again, the defenses you played weren't amazing, but maybe there was just some other schematic issues that teams were trying to take him away, which might also contribute to the reason why Spencer Jones was able to make a larger contribution. That might be another reason, more schematically. But either way, Tim did not have a good week during the week of the 17th. Bruce, Zeke, and Duran all had better weeks than they had the previous times that they played, albeit they were still overall not playing better than the team averages. Okay, if you take a look at Bruce's main issue is the defensive rebounding, not getting a ton of rebounds, which is interesting because he's not really playing well offensively from anywhere else beyond the paint. And so if he's going to be in the paint, you'd figure that he'd be getting more defensive rebounds, especially considering that Big Val didn't play most of this week and Aaron Gordon got hurt. Okay, so Bruce struggled with the rebounds. He's not really taking a ton of threes, although he had a better shooting week from 3, and the few threes that he did take went in. Overall, he's just fine. In 22 minutes per game, you'd like to see him get some more rebounds or take some more shots and make some more shots. So that's something interesting that we noticed here with Bruce. Zeke, Zeke, we've been saying for a while, he has a lot of amazing skills, but he just doesn't really have an identity in the offense. Sometimes he'll shoot threes well. Sometimes he'll shoot threes. Sometimes he won't shoot threes at all. And it's like, well, then you have to play in the paint, and then he plays in the paint and he can't really hang with whoever he's guarding, or he gets stuck in a pick and roll, and it's just a whole mess. And so Zeke's contribution, he had to get 21 minutes per game this last week because the Nuggets were so undersized. Did not do very much scoring, did not do very much assisting, did get some boards. Okay, we'll give him credit for that. That's 5 rebounds a game-ish. And he shot 46% from the field, did not shoot well from 3. So that's kind of just been the Zeke Naji experience. The inconsistency week by week also has to do with the fact that the personnel is inconsistent week by week with the injuries, but oh well. Then you get Deron Holmes, Julian Strother, and Hunter Tyson. Deron Holmes kind of got thrown in again because the bigs, AG and Jonas, got hurt in games. And it's just interesting to see that when Holmes is out on the court, all of his shots are threes. Okay. So there's a reason why he's kind of in and out of the rotation right now. It's because he's getting thrust in when injuries happen. And he doesn't really have much of a game beyond the 3-point shooting, which he's been pretty good at, all things considered. I mean, 30% isn't going to knock your socks off from 3, but on 5 attempts, that's, overall, he shot better than this the last time that he played. So, I mean, it is what it is with Deron Holmes, but he's not a guy who's going to be locking down anytime consistently at the backup 4 because he's just not getting in the paint. Okay. And I mean, he's undersized here. If you take a look, he's 6'9", 225. It's rather undersized for a 4. Here's Aaron Gordon is 6'8", on a full 10 pounds heavier. They play the same position. So it's understandable the position that Deron is in. With Strother and Tyson, obviously we talked about Tyson. He was just in there because of the AG injury, just to get some forward minutes. Strother actually had a really good game against the Bucks. Okay, surprisingly so. And despite having a 20-something point lead late in that game and almost blowing it to the point where they could have lost on a buzzer-beating half-court shot, Julian Strother actually was pretty much the difference in this game. Okay, most of this 11.7 points per game came from that Bucks game, and he significantly improved from the last time he got rotational minutes. Not taking a ton of threes, not shooting a ton of threes very well when he does, but he's getting in the paint. He's finding himself good driving opportunities recently, and that's actually opened up, whether it be like his floater, but it's mostly just him cutting straight to the hoop. Almost in like a Christian Brown type of role where it's just him taking it right there. And so the fact that he didn't turn the ball over, got that scoring, and shot well from the field was the reason why the Nuggets won that Bucks game in particular, and the reason why he played significantly better than the last time he got significant minutes. Okay, so that was pretty much this week, the week of the 17th. All right. There's really not much else to cover here. The Nuggets as a team overall, if we wanted to talk about their team versus league comparisons, did not play as well offensively this week. That's pretty obvious. Okay. If you take a look at these scores, not good. The pace went down. Okay. It went down from the week before, and it was already low the week before. It went down again. So just not creating, again, opportunities to score more than your opponent. It's not necessarily that they're shooting significantly worse. It's more so that they're not creating themselves opportunities, which again is understandable. Again, the offensive rebounding just really low. It was even lower than last week's low. Both of these numbers were just not good. Bottom 3 in the league in both of these categories. They didn't turn the ball over though, and this is why they kept themselves in these games despite this reality. Okay, now they also didn't have the ball as much, and so that could be a reason why they're not turning the ball over as much. But I mean, it's still good to see that they're top 3 in the league in turnovers. I think they were actually number 1 in the league in turnovers per game, not turning the ball over, which is why they're hanging in these games. Assists were kind of league average, just slightly below league average in terms of field goal shooting. But again, we said Hardaway had a bad week, Pickett had a bad week. And so, I mean, those are two guys who've been holding your offense together from a shooting perspective the last few weeks. So that's pretty explainable. Didn't make as many threes, didn't take as many threes as the league. And, here, that 3-point percentage says it all, but I mean, that happens. That's just part of the flow of the year. And so that's completely understandable. The defense was mid, which was actually a good thing. Okay. They kind of held right where it needed to be. I said they needed to be at about 112 to sweep the week. They were at about 114. So there you go. The defense didn't play as well. And then they just weren't rebounding as well. Okay. Rebounding below league average during this period of time. They were not fouling as much though. And even though they weren't getting many steals, they ended up getting about league average number of blocks, which is absolutely incredible. Okay. Val and Gordon played a small number of those games that week, and they still found themselves up here in terms of blocks per game. So that was cool. Now we head into the week of the 24th. So this is last week. Like I said, Nuggets were supposed to play the Grizzlies. That game got canceled because of the crazy snow that the nation experienced during that period of time. But if you take a look at the 3 opponents they did play, I mean, this Detroit team, not great offensively the last 2 weeks, but top of the league in defense. So that was going to be a tough game. This Brooklyn game should have been a win. Glad it was a win. Okay. I actually, when I was thinking about predicting the score, I thought the Nuggets would win 123-119. So thought it was a lot higher scoring of a game than it ended up being, but the differential was the same. And so I'll take my wins when I can find them. And then this Clippers game, I really thought this Clippers game was going to be a loss. I did not expect Nikola to come back against the Clippers though. Okay. So that might've been the difference in this game. I actually thought the Nuggets would lose this game to the Clippers 115, 107, 108, something like that. So, yeah, it was good to see that Nikola returned and held things together against a decently tough Clippers defense and a mid offense. But let's take a look at the player impact ratings for this week. A lot of red. Okay. And that's understandable. Look, you're playing the best team in the Eastern Conference so far this year. And you're playing a team in the Clippers that is the oldest team in the league, most experienced, most veteran team in the league. Okay. So, I mean, this Brooklyn team is also interesting because it was Michael Porter Jr.'s return back to Denver. He had an incredible game. And so you can understand how everyone played worse this week. Well, everyone besides Tim Hardaway. But again, Tim Hardaway had a really bad week the week before. And so if you take a look at this team average with the ratings, it's not good. They've been above water the last 2 weeks. And so this was a rough week for them. But let's get into the numbers a little bit more detail. Jamal held pretty much where he'd been, the last week. So there's that same consistency, which is really all you want out of Jamal with this team in his current position. So not much of a difference with the prior week. Peyton Watson had a significantly worse week than the last few weeks that he had. And I guess he was due for a week to come back down to earth. 18 points per game is not bad. 3 assists, 3 rebounds a game. Shot significantly worse from the field. 42% and then 36% from 3. That'll do it for you. But again, 2 top 10 defenses over the last 2 weeks. So understandable. That's understandable. Tim Hardaway played much better this week. 11. That might actually be the best rating he's had in several weeks. Yeah, he was 7 the week before. And then he was -4 here. So, he got back up to shooting at Tim Hardaway Jr. type levels, actually probably better. This is 60% from 3 on 9 attempts a game. That's insanely good. So Tim had an incredible last week. 20 points per game. All right. There's a reason why his minutes went back up to the 3rd most minutes played of everyone on the team in the rotation. Spencer had a worse week. Shot 62.5% from 3, which is great. But look, not really rebounding as well, which again, understandable now that Big Val came back, now that Nikola Jokic came back. All right. So the rebounding numbers aren't as good, not really getting assists, still not turning the ball over, but just didn't shoot as well from the field. And again, understandable with all this rotational change that's been happening. Bruce Brown, played slightly worse than he did the week before. Shot much better from the field, though. And that was the big difference for him. 40% from 3 was under the team average for the week, but that's really good. So that's now back-to-back weeks where Bruce is shooting 40% from 3, not shooting them in volume, but he's knocking them down, and he's still making most of the other shots that he's taking. Considering most of his shots are 2-point attempts, 82% of his shots, that's a good thing. It's a good thing to see. So Bruce played slightly worse, but it's good to see that he's finding some consistency, and it's overall positive. Big Val, you finally got a presence back in the paint, and that was a very good on a number of fronts. Look, you're getting 10 rebounds a game again from a guy who is absolutely huge. You see over here, that's obvious, and it's just huge for the team. Didn't have a great week shooting in terms of field goal percentage, but it was good to see that as he works himself back into game shape, that he's at least contributing in an area that the Nuggets need badly right now, which is those defensive rebounds. All right. And he shot 50% from the 3-point line as well. Val has that in him sometimes. He's not an incredible 3-point shooter, but he can knock them down if you leave him open. And so that was good to see. Then you got the 3 here at the bottom, Strawther, Pickett, and Najee. They all had significantly worse weeks. And that's understandable. Strawther had that, like I said, the one good game against the Bucks. But aside from not turning the ball over, he made 67% of his threes. He just didn't take very many of them. 40% from the field. A lot harder of a week for Strawther against 2 top 10 defenses here. Pickett had an absolute fall off of a week. 1.3 points per game. 0 threes made. He made 0 threes this last week. These last 3 games, 0. That's a bit insane. I don't think it even matters that you had Val come back and that you had Joker come back. Joker only came back for 1 game. You had Val back, I guess. Sure. Pickett getting 1 point per game and making 0 threes the whole week. That's a bit crazy. That's a bit insane. But that was just a bad week for Pickett. That's the worst week Pickett has had in a long time. Zeke Naji, it's the Zeke Naji experience, like we already talked about. He made more of his shots in the paint when he took them. Didn't take a single three last week. So it feels like this upcoming week with Nikola back, and I guess we didn't really talk much about Nikola, but he only played 1 game, and he played a very Nikola-like game, which I guess is kind of cool. Yeah, by the way, Nikola dropped 31, 12, and 5 against the Clippers last night. 73% shooting, 67% from the 3-point line, 2 of 3. He's back, ladies and gentlemen. He's back like he never left. So I guess we'll make mention of the fact that the best player in the league is back and playing well. Very important for this upcoming week. But that aside, back to Zeke, I don't really think Zeke will get very much playing time this upcoming week. He's just kind of finding himself not effectively fitting within the offensive scheme the last few weeks. And so now that the bigs are healthy, I think he's probably going to drop off here. But I think the other 9 will be in the rotation this upcoming week, and that'll be good to see. It'll be interesting to see how those rotations pan out. And it'll be a very interesting week, as a matter of fact, because you're playing 3 playoff teams. We'll get to that in a second. Okay. Let's take a look at the team stats from this last week. Incredible offensive rating. Hey, this was a top 3 offensive rating in the league last week. And the pace was even worse than it was the week before. Okay. This might be the lowest pace I've seen digging around these Nuggets statistics in a long time. I think they had less than 80 shots total against the Clippers last night. Less than 80. Like, this is a team that gets upper 80s to 90s, lower 90s shot attempts per game. 79 attempts in a game is unacceptable. Okay, that's part of the reason why this pace is so low. It's like you're just not getting shot attempts. Offensive rebounds, again, slightly less than the league average, but it went up to 9. Okay, it was higher than I thought it needed to be, which is good to see. And it was way higher than the 7 that they had the week before. Obviously, that's what happens when you get Big Val back. Okay, turnovers kind of stayed low. They are still top 7 in the league in turnovers per game. You'll love to see it. Assists are kind of, again, middle of the league. Field goal percentage, 50%. You love to see it. They did not take very many threes last week, which was very, very weird. Don't really understand that. Tim Hardaway had a good 3-point shooting week again. And so you're looking across the list here. It's like, who's not taking their threes? You know, Peyton Watson maybe took a 3 less. Jamal, not really. Jamal's mostly a 2-point pull-up guy. And so it's like, it's weird that the team took significantly fewer threes this last week than they had the last few weeks. But that's why they shot such a high percentage. Okay, they still made 13, even though they took nearly 10 fewer attempts than the rest of the league did over the last week. Got more free throws than the rest of the league. Shot slightly worse in terms of percentage, but they were getting there. Okay, and so this is really just the picture that the Nuggets find themselves in at this point. The defense was still worse than the league average, but they were getting more defensive rebounds and not fouling, not really getting steals, but getting more blocks. So all things considered, defensively, you know, it's right about where you would expect for this team. The last few weeks have been a little bit of an underperformance with the defense. This week, they performed about as you might expect, okay? And so really not upset about this defensive rating, especially since this offensive rating was so high. All they need to do is just get themselves more looks. But now the Joker's back. That shouldn't be too much of a problem, all right? And so if we take a look now at the upcoming week, we're going to fill out our next week predictions here, all right? And so tough week upcoming, man. All right, you got Oklahoma City at home. That's a national TV game. You then go to Detroit, and then you go to New York. These offensive ratings speak for themselves. Okay, Oklahoma City, top 10 in both offensive and defensive rating. New York and Detroit are both middle of the pack in offensive rating, but are the number 1 and number 2 defenses, respectively, that being Detroit and New York. Detroit's number 1, New York number 2 defensive rating over the last 2 weeks. So the Nuggets are playing three top 10 defenses and 2 top 3 defenses this upcoming week. So what do they need to do? Not necessarily what do they need to do. What do I think they'll do? Okay. This is what we're doing. We're making these predictions now. I think the rating for this upcoming week, look, 121 against 2 top 10 defenses. Okay. And a bottom 3 defense. The offense, man, the defense I think can hold. All right. I'm not incredibly impressed by these offenses, and the Nuggets played some pretty solid defense here this last week. Held Detroit to 109, held Brooklyn to 103, held the Clippers to 109. So under 110 for, each of those teams. I think that the Nuggets could easily put up a rating of 120 this week and a defensive rating of 115 this week. Okay, so that is a net difference of about 5. All right, so that's my prediction this upcoming week. The pace, dude, Look, with Nikola, you're going to get more looks. All right. You're going to be able to get out on the fast break a lot more. And so that will give you a lot more looks when you're scoring quicker. I think that the pace this week jumps up to 95. Okay. And that'll be a good thing for the Nuggets as they try to compete with three of the best teams in the NBA. Offensive rebounds. Look, they had 9 this week. With a full week of Nikola, maybe it goes up to 10. Okay. And defensively, 35, maybe that goes up to 37. Okay. Turnovers. I think they're probably going to hang in the range of 11 turnovers. Again, their season average is about 11 or 12, so that's not unexpected. Assists, I think assists go up with Nikola back too. I think assists go up to 28. All right, that's a pretty significant jump. That puts them above the league average where they should be. Okay. With the field goal percentage, I think that, again, with Joker coming back, this changes everything. Okay. He is just the best player in the world because he can do everything with anyone you really put out there with him. So with the field goal percentage, I think this probably stays at about 49%. Actually, I will even give him the benefit of the doubt. We'll say 50. We'll say they get to 50% team field goal shooting this upcoming week. In terms of the threes, it seems like for whatever reason, they don't want to shoot threes. I don't know why that would be. I mean, you're the best 3-point field goal percentage shooting team in the league. The few games you won that were tough, like the Boston game, for instance, you shot a ton of threes and you made a ton of threes, but they're not encouraging me right now. So I think they'll probably take about 14. I'm going to say they might, 34 3-point attempts this upcoming week. Okay. And that's a percentage of what? That is a percentage of 41.2%. Okay, cool. 41.2%. Cool. That's a good 3-point shooting percentage, and it's on par with this team's current abilities when it comes to shooting the three. All right. Free throws. I think with Joker got 17 free throws last night. That's crazy. Do I think he'll get that many every night? I don't know. But it'll certainly keep this free throw attempts number up there. So we'll say they stick right around 26. On a 78% free throw shooting. Helps to get Joker back. He's a good free throw shooter. All right. Personal fouls, I think those will probably stay right around. But they're playing better teams this week. But they're not really playing incredibly amazing offenses. We'll say it stays at about 16 personal fouls this week. Maybe 17. They're playing better teams. We'll just do that for that reason. Steals, I think steals probably stay at about 5, and I think blocks might, if you get a whole week of Big Val, obviously Big Val's minutes go down. If Joker's minutes go up, 6 blocks per game. Okay, we'll just keep it that way. Their offensive rating this upcoming week, I think, like I said, I think it could be about 120. I think that their defensive rating might be about 115. All right. So that's how we're getting this difference here. All right. In case that's unclear. So that is my prediction for the upcoming week. As far as the games and their outcomes, let's see. Home against Oklahoma City helps to have Joker. Really does. But I think this is probably a loss. All right. I think it's a close loss. I think it's a loss that's within 7 points. I think that if you take a look at this offensive rating, this defensive rating, Oklahoma City wins this game 113 to 106. Yeah. Okay, that'll be our prediction for this upcoming week for that game. Then you go to Detroit. You almost beat Detroit at home without Nikola Jokic. And, Tim Hardaway had an incredible shooting week. Peyton Watson had a down week. Peyton Watson probably does not have this kind of down week next week with Nikola taking up a lot more of the Detroit defense's focus. And so I think this could be a win. I think we could beat Detroit. I think it'll be close. I'm not predicting any blowouts here by any means, but I think you lost 109-107 at home. I think you could win, considering the Nuggets have been a better road team this year than home team. I think you could win this game 115-111. Yeah, that seems like a good result. Okay, I'm happy with that. And then you get New York. Okay, this This is a bit ridiculous. All right. So 98 defensive rating. Don't really know who New York has played the last few weeks. They haven't played us. This is probably a loss. We don't really play very well when we head up to New York, and we're not healthy right now, and they're playing a really good defense. You know, even with Joker, I think this is probably a 117-109 loss. Seems close enough. So it's a loss that's outside of the 7-point range, so it's a little bit worse. But, you know, if you go 1-2 against these two teams in the current position you're in, I think this is a good week for the Nuggets. All right. I think this is a solid week. This week will tell us a lot about this team's ability. If they go 2-1 and they win either of these two games, I mean, you got tons of enthusiasm, and we're already super enthused, not just because Joker's back, not just because the team had almost twice as many wins as losses without him, maybe even exactly that many. I think they were like 12-6 without Joker. Okay. Not just for those reasons, but just because it's like, these are really good teams and you're not fully healthy. And this is about the time of the year where teams need to start showing who they are. So if you end up being in the position to go 2-1 this week, or even 3-0, I don't think that'll happen. That would be a massive statement. Okay. Massive statement to the league in that regard. So, you know, that is our Nuggets walkthrough for this week. Now it's time to transition into my favorite segment. You know, I am a Colorado Rockies and Denver Nuggets fan. The Colorado Rockies have my heart more than the Denver Nuggets do. It's just the way it is. Baseball is much better than basketball. All right. In my completely unbiased opinion. And, you know, at Rockies Fest, I talked about Rockies Fest earlier. At Rockies Fest, I got the opportunity actually to hop into a small fan Q&A that they had with the new pitching coaching staff. Okay, so Alon Leichman was in there. Who else was in there? Gabe Rivas. So that's your new pitching coach, your new assistant pitching coach. Matt Bushman was in there. Okay, new bullpen coach. I think Brian Jones was in there. I think he's the director of scouting or something like that, player development for the Rockies. It's led by Ryan Spielborgs, who's a fantastic moderator for these types of questions. And I was in there asking, in that session, participating in the question asking session. There you go. And I asked the question. I asked the last question that was asked during that section, and I asked just a fun little nerdy question, you know, about a seam shifted wake. Okay, I'm not even sure how many of the people who are watching this show even know what that is. Okay, that's a super nerdy MLB analytics term. It's pretty much just non-spin induced movement for pitches. Okay, and so I asked them that question. I got a pretty fun answer. You know, that's a pretty in-depth question. Kind of made a joke. I think Spielberg made a joke at me saying like, "Are you like work for Driveline or something? Like, what's going on here?" I was like, no, but. So I got a very simple answer to that question. It's like, yeah, we're taking a look at all those different things. But ultimately, the conclusion that I think Brian Jones left me with, that he literally said, he said, all you have to worry about is the fact that Alon Leichman, new pitching coach, he's the shape doctor. Okay, this guy will figure out ways to get our pitchers' pitches to move at their maximum potential in whatever way that is in these conditions. I was like, yep, fair enough. Works for me. And so I say that to say it's really cool to hear that type of thing about the new coaches that the Rockies have brought in recently. Okay. Obviously, a lot of new stuff going on in the organization in 2026. New executive staff, new coaching staff for the most part. A lot of new players, which we'll get to in a second. But I start with the coaches and the executives because those are the ones making the personnel decisions. Okay, they're not only making the decisions on who's actually on this team, if you're talking about the executives, they're also making decisions about the personnel and helping our team, our players, refine their current arsenals if they're pitchers, work on certain technical things if they're hitters and pitchers, I guess, as well. And it's really cool to hear that guys like Alon have this type of reputation for being really smart, really analytically driven, and figuring out ways to win at altitude with those particular reputation that he has and that a lot of these other coaches have of being teachers of men. It's fantastic. And it's super, super encouraging. Now, why do I say that? Well, this title of today's segment for the Rockies is called Rockies Excitement. And I know that seems kind of contradictory, if you will, you know, coming off of a 43 win season, one of the worst seasons in MLB history. Why is there a reason to be excited about this team? Okay, so we've already talked about the executives before. Okay, we've talked about DePodesta, his experience, how it translates really nicely into this Colorado Rockies situation, aside from the fact that he's super excited about this opportunity and has been for a while. He's had his eye on it. We've just talked about the coaches and how they have that reputation for being good teachers, good instructors, using analytics to better this team going forward. Now we have to talk about the players, because the players are the third aspect of the excitement that you need to, not that you should, that you must have about this team going into 2026. So I'm going to share the screen again. We're going to go back to H&H HQ. And we're going to take a look at the Rockies side of things now. Okay, so let's talk about 2025 and the 2026 offseason. Okay, so here is a list of every single position. Okay, broken out as such. I got starters, I got relievers, catchers, first base, second base, third base, etc. You understand how that works. On this list here, you'll see three different colors. You'll see purple, you'll see green, and you'll see red. Anyone highlighted red here and here is a person who is not coming back to this team in 2026. They have been, whether it be elected free agency, they have been released, they've been DFA, they've been traded, whatever it might be. They're not going to suit up for the Colorado Rockies in 2026. And what you'll notice here, if you count all of these players, that from the 2025 team, there were 57 total players who suited up for the Rockies. You know how many players are highlighted red here who will not suit up for the Colorado Rockies in 2026? 30 of them. That's more than half. Okay, that's not hard math to do. More than half of the team that contributed to the worst team in Rockies franchise history and one of the three worst teams in MLB history are not coming back. So off the bat, a lot of immediate excitement, a lot of it. And we can even go through some of these players here, and you can really just think to yourself, are you really upset that any of these guys are not coming back? German Marquez, love what he contributed to this team in the late 2010s. Not terribly disappointed he's not coming back. He's just not healthy enough and not good enough when he's healthy. Austin Gomber, released during the season. Glad he's not coming back. Not good. Bradley Blaylock, younger player, had some potential. We talked about it a little bit earlier this offseason, but he was traded, I think, last week for a double-A pitcher from the Marlins. Okay. Overall, glad he's not coming back. Jake Bird, ultimately your second best reliever this year, but he had consistency issues. He was on the down when we traded him during the trade deadline season, last season. Happy he's not coming back. Tyler Kinley, veteran reliever, had some injury issues, had some consistency issues since coming back from those injury issues. Happy he's not coming back. Nick Anderson, minor league free agent signing, kind of just got called up when injuries started to happen in the bullpen. Glad he's not coming back. Gilbreth, okay, Lucas had some good potential for a while, especially as a left-handed reliever for this team. But again, injuries plagued him, and when he came back, wasn't incredibly awesome. Glad he's not coming back. I mean, if there's anyone here you're going to be maybe a little bit upset is not coming back, it might be Dugan Darnell. Okay, he was in his late 20s. Now, a much later blooming prospect. He made his debut in 2025. Okay, on the older end, and he was actually not bad when he got called up. Okay, he actually had a really good ERA in the very hitter-friendly confines of the PCL in AAA, and so it was really incredible to see that he might have been a solid part of this team going forward. Kind of upset he's not coming back, but overall, based on the other moves that were made, understand it. Not terribly frustrated that he's not coming back. Roansy Contreras, not upset he's not coming back. Scott Alexander, not upset. Molina, not upset. Rollison, not upset. Angel Sevilla, I mean, he had good potential, man. 23 years old. We traded him to the Yankees this last week for a AAA third baseman who actually might have a good shot to compete for that opening day first base spot. He's kind of in his mid-20s, about that point where he's almost major league ready, and he dominated AAA last year. So that was a good trade. But as far as losing Sevilla, he really only had two pitches. Fastball, changeup, really good changeup, really bad fastball. Okay, I was listening to Adam Ottavino actually earlier this week talk about that trade briefly. He did a little stream on MLB.com on their YouTube page. He was talking about this trade. He went through all the analytics of Angel Sevilla, and pretty much his conclusion was that, yeah, this guy's fastball shape sucks. This is bad. Okay, his technique, you watched some video of him. He said his technique, terrible. I was like, okay, all right, fair enough, man. I get it. Okay, Rockies can't develop pitchers. Okay, so are you upset Chavis gone? Ultimately, sad to say, not really. Okay, Drew Romo had some potential, never really put it together, struggled with injuries. Not upset that he's gone. Austin Nola, veteran who wasn't really terribly solid offensively or defensively when he was on the team last year. Not upset that he's gone. Jacob Stallings, veteran catcher, very similar situation to Nola, had a solid 2024 with the Rockies. Okay, we'll give him credit for that. Not great in 2025. Not great with the bat. Defensively, wasn't incredible. Okay. And the one guy who he was really on the team for in particular, Ryan Feltner, they were a good battery. And Brian really wanted him to be his catcher on his start days. Got hurt and early in the season, nonetheless, and never got called back up because he couldn't pitch in AAA. So Stallings, not upset that he's gone. Keston Hiura, minor league free agent signing, got called up because of first base depth issues. Wasn't anything incredible at the major league level. Not upset that he's gone. You might be upset that Warming Bernabel's gone. You might be. That was a surprising move that the Colorado Rockies made in December, I think it was. Okay, to release or DFA Warming Bernabel. Interesting decision, but I mean, he started off incredibly hot, getting called up for the first time late last summer. Okay, then he started to slow down a little bit. Then he got hurt. And then when he came back for the few games after he got hurt, was not very good. Okay. The technique was all over the place with the bat, if you looked closely. So ultimately, while he might have been a nice piece for a 2026 Colorado Rockies team that did not have a new executive and coaching staff, considering they have a new executive and coaching staff, not terribly upset that he's gone. That might be a controversial take. Michael Toglia, not upset that he's gone. You know, okay, I understand how much affection Rockies fans have for Big Mike. Okay, he showed up in a lot of the commercials that the Rockies created in 2025. He's a fun guy, fun personality. He's been a solid defender for most of his career. Last year, that kind of dropped off, but we all know the strikeouts have been his major issue. You cannot strike out more than 30% of the time and be a major league everyday first baseman. Okay, and I get that there's a new coaching staff coming in who theoretically might have been able to work with him, maybe figure some stuff out. Point is, he's had several years worth of opportunity to show significant improvement. And I mean, he just hadn't shown it. Okay. And so it's understandable that he's gone. And I mean, negative 2.2 WAR, not upset that he's gone. Okay. Tyro Estrada injured a lot of last year, was hoping he could plug in at second base and be a solid fit at that position. Not upset that he's gone. Kyle Farmer, solid defender, not incredible with the bat. He was a good filler at that position while guys like Ritter, Amador, and such were starting to get some traction, okay, within the organization at the AAA level. And then eventually later on in the year, Ryan started to take away most of that playing time from Kyle. Not upset that he's gone. Ryan McMahon, okay, that was a tough trade for some Rockies fans. One of the last hangovers from the 2018 playoff team and a former top prospect in the organization under the previous executive team. Not upset that he's gone. Okay, just amazing defender. Sure, at third base, that's fine. Offensively, too much strikeout. You know, he'll hit home runs if he doesn't strike out. But I mean, ultimately, you needed to see what you could get for him. And Rockies got some pretty decent stuff in return for Ryan McMahon. So not upset that he's gone. Okay, pretty much everyone here in the shortstop category, I don't even think it really needs much of a conversation. Owen Miller, minor league free agent signing, not upset that he's gone. Aaron Schunk, former top prospect, never really showed enough besides his speed and sometimes his defense at the major league level to guarantee that he'll be on this team in a meaningful way long-term. Not upset that he's gone. Alan Trejo was gone, and for some reason, when Tovar got hurt, was brought back. Okay, could have promoted Ritter at that point in the season, but nope, not upset that he's gone. Orlando Arcia, not upset that he's gone. Fun personality, okay, not good enough offensively. And aside from the arm defensively, really not any other reason to keep him around, okay? Not upset about that. Sam Hilliard, another one of those guys like Trejo. It's just like, that is the telltale sign of a poorly run organization, okay? When you have a guy who you invested a lot in, he gets to the major league level, has a meaningful opportunity to contribute at the major league level, doesn't do so well, you let him go, and then you have depth issues and you bring him back, even though with the other teams he went to, he didn't show anything incredible that showed he'd changed as a player. That's called organizational dysfunction. So not upset that Sam is gone, hopefully for good now. Great guy. Love the work he does with the, I think it's an ALS nonprofit that he works with. Phenomenal dude. Okay. Not a good enough baseball player. Okay. So not upset that he's gone for player reasons. No center fielders gone. I mean, Doyle's the only one who's still here. He's there were some trade rumors multiple times this offseason that he might get shipped out for something. Never did. At least still hasn't, and hopefully won't. So then you got Nick Martini. Okay. Had a great spring training. Had a terrible start to the season. And at that point, you might as well start to figure out what you have with some of the other younger guys in your outfield. Not upset that he's gone. Sean Bouchard, he's a minor league. He is a major minor league free agent, something like that. All I know is that he is a free agent and we don't have to offer him a contract and he could be gone. As far as I've seen, they haven't offered him a contract yet. So he's gone. And I'm not upset that he's gone. Okay. Looked at way too many strikeouts. Okay. You can't go up to the plate. I get that you're selective and that's your calling card, that you draw a lot of walks. You cannot watch fastballs down the middle for strike 3. Can't do it. He did that way too much, in my just personal opinion. Okay. And the little playing time that he did get. Not upset that he's gone. Okay. Yanquiel Fernandez, surprisingly enough, I mean, the Rockies needed to make room on the 40-man roster for some of the moves that they made this last week. We'll get to that in a second. Top prospect at one point in the organization. Okay. Again, the Rockies farm system has not been incredibly rated the last few years. All right. Not surprising that Yanquiel might have been overrated. Okay, we might have expected a lot more out of him than he is actually able to produce. Not a bad player, still a young player. So hopefully he gets a good opportunity somewhere, assuming he doesn't clear his DFA and end up just accepting an outright to AAA. But ultimately, if he doesn't come back, not upset that he's gone. Okay. Talked about also earlier this offseason that he is pretty much a 50-50 ground ball, fly ball guy. Coors Field, that's just not going to work. It's not going to fly, literally. Okay. So not upset that he's gone. Okay. Those are the 30 guys who are not coming back in 2026. Pretty much guaranteed. And so there's really no one on that list that you should be upset is leaving. And a lot of them just contributed significantly to this team being as bad as they were. I mean, zero, obviously the stat we're using here is F-WAR. Okay. This is wins above replacement. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, a 0 WAR is the equivalent of playing at the same level of play as a replacement level player, meaning someone coming from AAA, okay, the level right before the major league level of play. If you have a 0, it means you're playing at the same level as that type of player. And so you're not really better than a replacement level player, or you're the same, I guess. If it's negative, it means you're playing worse than a replacement level player. Okay. And pretty much every single one of the guys who is leaving had a negative WAR in 2025. Okay. So in other words, you would be much better just calling up a replacement level player from AAA to play these positions rather than these guys. Okay. They are not major league caliber players at this point in their career. Or they're just in a bad situation. Like Kyle Farmer's a veteran. He's been around for a while. This is not good. It's not a good WAR, And so maybe he is a AAA caliber player at this point in his career. But all that to say, you should not be upset that any of these guys are leaving. Now you take a look at the guys who are staying. Okay, Kyle Freeland, solid veteran, been here for a long time. Only team he's been on. Okay, and he started to pick it up at the end of last season as well. He made a technical change with his delivery that really helped him. That's why he finished with such a high WAR, even though for a lot of the year, he wasn't incredibly good. Tanner Gordon, he's coming back. Okay. 0.6 WAR. Again, he was up and down from AAA at least 2 times last year and finished with the second most wins on this team, I believe. Maybe even the first. I think he had 6 or so wins in 2025. A lot of potential here for Tanner Gordon. Okay. Ryan Feltner, actually, despite really only making a start or 2 in 2025, finished as the 3rd best starter for this team. He had a struggle in AAA after coming back from that injury. But I mean, aside from that, hopefully he bounces back because the tools are still there. The tools have always been there. He's got a good pitch mix. Dolander, first cup of coffee at the big leagues. did not have very good time. Okay. 9.98 or 9.88 ERA, earned run average at Coors Field. Not going to fly. But again, it was his first cup of coffee at the big leagues. Maybe he was rushed a tad bit. We'll see how he adjusts in 2026. But a lot of potential, a lot of stuff to like here. Senzatella, if there was one player that I would like to see besides Chris Bryant that the Rockies move off of in 2026, I think it would be Antonio Senzatella. Okay, he was the worst starter pretty much in MLB last year. He gave up the largest number of hits. At this point, I know he was coming off of injury in 2025, so that might factor into it. But if he doesn't make significant gains and show significant progress in spring training, I'd rather have him not be here. Okay, but he's about the only one who I can legitimately say that about. Cade Brown, young prospect, got called up late last year. Fine that he's on the team. Okay, this F-WAR is understandable. Rockies lacked starting pitcher depth. He hadn't even pitched at AAA yet. They called him straight up out of AA. That's how desperate the Rockies were last year. So McCade has some potential. He'll probably start the year in AAA, I bet. Carson Palmquist, okay. Another guy, starter in the minors. He started most of his games, I think, in 2025, but then he got moved to the bullpen in the back end of the year. I think he would be a solid long relief left-handed pitcher because in most of his starts, he was really good for like the first 2 or 3 innings. But beyond that, his command kind of just broke down and that was not good for him. So it would be cool if he would be a long reliever for the Rockies. They need left-handed long relievers, but I'm excited about his potential still. Jimmy Herget was your best reliever last year. He's coming back. Juan Mejia, underrated reliever for the Rockies. He was in AAA. He finally got called up because he had been dominating there for so long that season. And then he came up to the big league level and continued to pitch well. And he's a young reliever. So a lot of potential, a lot of stuff to like here with Juan Mejia. Victor Vodnik, he was your closer pretty much most of last year. Nicknamed the supervillain, which is a great nickname. Throws 100, throws a solid splitter and slider. Okay. There's a lot to like there. Jaden Hill. Jaden Hill spent a lot of time in AAA last year, really for no good reason from my perspective. Okay. Tyler Kinley was on the Rockies roster for longer during the first half of the year than Jaden Hill was for no good reason. Okay. Jaden hadn't been bad at the major league level, even in 2025. So I'm not sure why he didn't get more looks in the bullpen from earlier on in the year. A lot of potential to like here. Sinker changeup guy. Okay. With a slider. Lots to like there. High velo too. Okay. Seth Halverson. Okay. Seth had some injuries in 2025, particularly at the end of the year. Struggled a little bit with command. Okay. But you like the raw talent, man. 101. He can throw 101. He's got the same type of mix that Vodnik has with the slider and splitter. There's a lot to like with Halverson. Okay. I think he probably starts the year in AAA though. That's my bet. Okay. But hey, lots to like about him. Zach Agnos, he came up and made his debut last year as well for the first time. Similar to Juan Mejia. He didn't have the same production that Mejia had. He started off really solidly his first few outings. Then I think his grandfather died and he went on the bereavement list for a little bit. And then when he came back, he just was not the same pitcher at all. Maybe something similar to Brenton Doyle with the situation Brenton had earlier last year in losing a child, a baby who hadn't yet been born. But Agnos that was like the dividing line for him. Okay. Solid start, didn't finish that way. And so I think he probably starts in AAA, but there's a lot to like here about Agnos. A lot to like about Luis Peralta. Okay. He was another one of those guys who had a rough 2025. A lot of potential flashed in 2024, but in 2025, his technique just wasn't consistent enough. It led to him leaving pitches over the plate, and he just was not a good pitcher at the major league level. Then he got sent down to AAA and it was even worse. Okay. So he was very clear about that this offseason, though. He said that I think his father actually showed him the technical issue that he needed to fix. And so I anticipate that Luis might compete for an opening day bullpen spot. Again, Rockies need lefties. So that's cool to see. Hunter Goodman, Silver Slugger Award winner. Okay. Phenomenal season. Best Rocky in 2025. He's coming back. You're happy about that. Braxton Fulford made his debut 2025. Shout out to Braxton. We interviewed Braxton a few weeks ago. If you haven't seen that interview and you're interested, go check it out. It was a good one. I think, he's got some competition with some of the other minor league free agent signings that the Rockies have made, like Brett Sullivan for the backup catching spot on this team. But there's a lot to like with Fulford. And if he can put it together in spring training, I don't see a reason why he wouldn't be the catcher going into the season. Okay. Speedy catcher. When do you see that? How often do you see a catcher who's in the 88th percentile in sprint speed? All right. You don't see it often. All right. So you're not upset that Braxton's coming back. Blaine Crim, a lot of potential. Lots to like about Blaine Crim. Okay. He's another one of those guys who's in his late 20s, made his debut in the last few years. But I mean, he showed a decent amount of ability to hold first base down at the end of last year. He'll get a fair shot to compete for the starting job in spring training. Chris Bryant, I mean, we've talked about Chris Bryant at length before. He shouldn't be here anymore. Hopefully they can figure out a way to get rid of his contract at some point this year and just get him off the team, because he's not being a very productive contributor on the field or off the field. It's just not a good situation. So aside from Senzatella, Chris is obviously the only other guy I'd like to see not on the team and who I'd kind of be upset about being on the team in 2026. Got Ryan Ritter coming back from last year. Young guy, flashed a lot of potential in AAA. All right, so you're happy about that. Adael, Amador. Look, he's still young. Okay, he was a top prospect for this team the last few years. He's like my age, I think. He's 22. So, I mean, he's got lots of potential, but he has to put it all together consistently. And he hasn't really quite done that at the AAA or MLB level yet. So a big 2026 for Amador would be a massive step forward for him, but not upset that he's still here. He's got lots of potential. Kyle Karros, another guy we interviewed. Go check that interview out if you haven't already. Kyle is probably the Rocky that I'm most excited about in 2026 because there's a lot to like about his perspective on the game, his confidence, etc. And I mean, he got called up late summer, put together a 0 FWAR, which is not bad. Okay. Played as good as a replacement level player would. He's the only third baseman on the 40-man roster right now. And so I think he's got a good shot to earn that opening day third base spot. And I wouldn't be upset about that at all. He's got lots of potential defensively, offensively. Good looking dude at 6'5", manning the hot corner. You love to see it. Ezekiel Tovar, something very similar. We already know that Tovar is good. Okay. He struggled with injuries in 2025, but extra base hit machine, Gold Glove winner. Not upset that Tovar is coming back. And again, he's a young guy. Still got lots of potential left to show and unlock at the major league level. Super excited about that. Jordan Beck took a lot of steps forward in 2025. Okay. Started off the year terribly. Got sent down. Actually, he was the opening day left fielder, got sent down. Got recalled later in the year and fixed the issue with his swing. Okay. He said he wasn't being rhythmic enough with his swing. It was too static. He fixed it. And he ended up putting up a 1 FWAR, and he missed a decent amount of weeks for the Rockies this year. Hit 270 for a good amount of the season, finished with like a 258 batting average, hit a few home runs, almost hit 20 home runs in not a full season. I mean, there are some people who are still not sure about Jordan Beck's future with this team. I'm one of the people who is pretty sure that Jordan Beck is the guy I want starting in left field for this team. Okay. Another guy with less than 3 years of major league experience, with lots of potential, almost 5 tool potential, I think, honestly. Brenton Doyle, look, Brenton Doyle going into 2026 has to flash the 5 tool potential. He just has to put it all together. He has it. We've been saying that. I've been saying that since 2023. Okay. You look at the 5 tools, hitting for power, hitting for average, speed, fielding, and arm strength. He's got all 5 of those abilities. He does. He has to put it all together. I could easily see Brenton being a 260, 270, 20 home run, 30 stolen base guy who's a Gold Glove defender in center field. That is the center field potential the Rockies have in Brenton Doyle. He has to put it together in 2026, but I'm very excited that he might be able to do so with the emotional stress of last season kind of being off of him with the personal family situation he had to deal with. Mickey Moniak, okay, coming back, not a great defender. Okay, we've known that for a long time, but had a great year offensively. Hit 24 home runs, I think, 25, something like that. And so, you love the bat that Mickey flashed last year for this team. He's obviously going to work on some things technically this offseason, but not upset that he's coming back. Okay. Zach Veen, young outfielder with good potential. His season mostly spent at AAA last year was very interesting. Started off very hot, got called up to the big league level, struggled mightily, got sent back down, and wasn't quite the same player that he was at the beginning of the AAA year. But overall, he still has the potential, and his stats from 2025 in AAA are still not awful. He made some technical adjustments. We'll see how he comes out in spring training 2026. Tyler Freeman, okay? Last guy we're going to talk about who's returning to the team in 2026. Speed, good arm, hits for average. The only reason this is -7 is because he's not a very rangy defender in right field, okay? Not the guy you'd like to have starting defensively in right field for that reason, but he's got a good arm and he's got a solid offensive identity. And so for that reason, you're not upset Tyler Freeman is coming back. He can also play second base. So he's got positional versatility. Ultimately, those are all the guys that the Rockies are bringing back from 2025. I'm not upset about any of them besides Senzatella and Chris Bryant. Okay. And that's 2. All right. Now we're going to talk about the third category. And the third category is the category of people who the Rockies have meaningfully added this offseason. I say meaningfully because the Rockies have made a lot of minor league free agent signings of guys who are pretty notable, at points in time during the last 5 years at the MLB level. Right. So John Brebbia is an example of that minor league free agent signing, relief pitcher. Nicky Lopez had a good 2021, I think it was. Okay. Minor league second base signing. So, Valente Payozo. Okay. How many of y'all know Valente Payozo? Okay. So, he wasn't incredible with the Marlins as a starter, but he's a guy who has good potential for competition in this Rockies rotation and provides good depth at a bare minimum. So they made a lot of minor league free agent signings too. We're only going to talk about the major signings and trades that they've made for the major league team overtly in 2026. Okay. So as far as starting pitching goes, they added Michael Lorenzen. Okay. That's the first free agent starting pitcher signing the Rockies have made since I think 2022-ish. And the first multi-year MLB starting pitcher free agent signing the Rockies have made since like 2013 when they signed Kyle Kendrick. Good to see that they signed Lorenzen. He's got a good pitch mix. He's got good pitch shapes, and he has a good relationship with our new pitching coach, Alon Leichman. Okay, he's also a veteran. Okay, it doesn't hurt to have a veteran arm in your rotation to help some of these younger guys who are coming up figure out how to put stuff together at the major league level. And I think he mentioned that at Rockies Fest too during the interview session that he was a part of. For what it's worth, he's thrown a no-hitter. Okay, so that is mighty cool. That was a few years ago, and he's a lot older now. Okay, and his performance has slipped a little bit since then, and when he was at the peak of his career. But he's pretty much the same age as Kyle Freeland, and so it's a good, solid addition to the rotation for the Colorado Rockies in 2026. Brendan Bernardino, same type of thing. They traded for Bernardino from the Red Sox in November. I think it was actually November last year when the offseason just began. Traded away a non-40-man roster center fielder. Okay, so you didn't really give up much to get Bernardino, but that's a solid left-handed veteran reliever. Okay, again, the pitch mix, the pitch shapes, solid Coors Field pitcher. Okay, he's built for success as much as one can be at Coors Field. Great move. And you see the 2025 WAR number? That's right in the middle of the mix of Rockies relievers and their contributions. So a lot to like there. Keegan Thompson was signed or claimed off waivers, I think. Interesting situation with Keegan. He actually signed like a 1-year split deal of some sort with the Reds, and then they released him like a few weeks after for some reason. I've never seen that before. But Rockies picked him up after that happened. He pitched in AAA all of 2025. Last time he was in the big leagues consistently was 2024, and he was pretty good. This was his 2024 WAR. Okay, so slightly better than a replacement level player. Still fairly young, fairly inexperienced, at least at the big league level, only like 3 or 4 years worth of time. But I mean, he'll compete for a bullpen spot. He might compete for a starting spot. He's been a starter at the big leagues before. He's been a reliever more recently in 2024, but it's a solid addition to the competition. Okay. Not ideal pitch mix or pitch builds, but it's a signing that shows the Rockies are trying to add depth. And at a minimum, that's what he is. Then Rockies traded for Pearson Ole this last week. Okay. And part of a trade with Edward Julian we'll get to later on. But Pearson Ole, solid guy, fits the Coors Field pitch build requirement. Okay. Four-seam fastball, low spin rate, good build. Changeup is his best secondary pitch, and it's a good one. Okay, low spin rate, good batting average against. It's very low. He made his debut in 2025 and already had success with that changeup. A lot to like about Pearson Ole. Okay, young guy. He'll compete for either a rotation spot or a long relief spot in spring training, one would presume. But at a minimum, good depth, and he will probably suit up for the Colorado Rockies at some point in 2026, even if he doesn't make the opening day roster. RJ Pettit, the Rockies Rule 5 selection in the Rule 5 draft. Okay, a lot to like here. He's guaranteed to be on the 26-man roster because of how the Rule 5 draft works. All right. He was a top 30 prospect in the Detroit Tigers organization. Good relief pitcher. It can give you multiple innings, throws a good pitch mix with the sinker, with a four-seam, with a slider and a changeup. All right. And he's huge. He's 6'8". Some say he pushes 300 pounds. He's huge. That's an intimidating force on the mound. Solid long reliever for the Rockies. Okay. Super excited about RJ Pettit to see what he has to bring to the team. Troy Johnston, the last guy we interviewed this offseason for H&H. If you haven't seen that interview, go check it out. It was a good one. Troy, okay, I have him listed at first base because he played most of his games at first base last year. Played most of his games in the outfield, but of all the positions, first, left, and right that he played most of them at first base. Okay, most innings, rather, not games. He had a .2 WAR, also made his debut in 2025 and played pretty solidly in the little playing time that he got. Okay, Rockies claimed him off waivers early this offseason. He'll compete for the starting first base job. Add some left-handed depth to this lineup that really needs it. All right, so good addition. Willie Castro signed to a 2-year deal a few weeks ago. Okay, he's a utility guy. I put him at second base because, again, he played the most innings at second base in 2025. Not an incredible WAR in 2025. Down year for him for sure, but he has a notable reputation. He was an all-star in 2024, okay, with the Twins. And so switch hit bat added to the lineup. He's got a really good arm, has a lot of offensive potential, good defense. That's a solid move that the Rockies made to bring in a Willie Castro. All right. Edward Julian, okay, the other guy I mentioned just a little while ago, brought in the trade that the Rockies made with the Twins that included Pearson Ole. Edward Julian, okay, former top prospect in the Twins organization. Very recently, I think in 2022, 2023, he was their third or fifth highest ranked prospect. A lot of potential here with Edward Julian. He was 7th in Rookie of the Year voting in 2023. All right, really good potential that was flashed for Eddie Julian. But 2024, 2025 kind of fell off a little bit. The production wasn't there. Rockies front office saw this guy out there. He has no options left, so the Twins had to have him on their major league roster. They felt like they had other second base depth that they wanted to give an opportunity to. Rockies went in and snatched Julian to add some more left-handed depth. And here's the interesting thing about Julian. I think he actually has a chance to be the opening day starting second baseman. But interesting thing about Julian, even though his performance has dipped significantly from his 2023 peak when he made his debut in 2024, 2025, much worse from a production perspective, his play style, his hitting profile has not changed. He's still really, really good compared to MLB and the things that he's good at, which is launch angle generation efficiency. Okay, that's exit velocity. If we were to pull up his baseball savant at some point, I think there are two others. It's either he doesn't strike out a lot or he doesn't walk a lot and he doesn't whiff a lot, something like that. The point is, even though his production tailed off in 24 and 25, his actual play shape, his play style offensively hasn't changed a lot. So the Rockies feel like there's some untapped potential there, and that's a really good signing for that reason, or a trade for that reason. Okay, good move to get Julian. The last major addition the Rockies made to the Major League team this offseason was by trading for Jake McCarthy. Okay. Jake McCarthy, another great underrated signing. Okay. You're going to look at this F WAR in 2025 and you're going to think, well, he was worse than a replacement level player. Okay. In 2024, what was he? He had a WAR of 2.9. Okay. That's really good for those of you who are not aware. The best players in the league usually have between a 7 and a 10 WAR on an annual basis, but all-star players have maybe around a 4-ish WAR. Okay. So McCarthy, considering he's a very young guy, got called up by the Diamondbacks in recent years, early 2020s, to make his debut. He put up a 3 WAR in 2024. He was really good. Hit like 285, hit a few home runs, stole a lot of bases. Speed is his calling card for sure. Something the Rockies want to do more is steal bases. All right. Adds another left-handed bat to that lineup. Phenomenal move. And so what you're seeing with some of these moves, like the Castro move, like the McCarthy move, like the Keegan Thompson move, even like the Michael Lorenzen move, you're finding this front office is finding guys from across the league who are low cost, relatively speaking, who have been pretty good in recent years, but who have struggled with injuries or just other factors that have contributed to their poor play last year. So in 2026, a lot of these guys have an opportunity to get back to being something like the guys who they were in recent years, who were really pretty good for everyday position players who are role players, not superstars. And maybe even you get more out of them than they got at the other places that they played. And so it's absolutely amazing. You'll love to see it. McCarthy did miss a lot of this for a lot of 2025 with injury, which is why his WAR was so bad. But I mean, ultimately speaking, that is a solid added crop of players that the Rockies have added this offseason. And so you really do love to see the moves that this front office has made to make the major league team better and not just add depth. But that said, all in all, in summary, this is what you're looking at. This is why you have to be excited about the Colorado Rockies in 2026. They're not going to be a playoff team. Okay, they will not be a playoff team, but they will be a significantly better team with a significantly brighter future. If you summarize everything we've just looked at, all these player types, okay, the guys who are not coming back, guys who are coming back, and the guys who are new to the team in 2026, this is what you get. Okay. You get 2025 total players, FWAR of negative 3.5. This is bad, guys. This is really bad. Okay. So 2025, the team was not good. I think we already knew that. 2025 players leaving. How much of this FWAR is leaving? You're losing negative 10 FWAR. Okay. Keep that in mind. You're losing more than half of the guys who played for this team in 2025. And the ones you're losing contributed to a play below replacement level of 10 wins worse than the average replacement player. So that's an amazing thing. Pretty much what this means in simple terms, you're getting rid of most of the guys who contributed to you being the worst team in the league last year and one of the worst teams in league history. That's an incredibly amazing thing. You're getting rid of the guys who are contributing to most of the problem. But who's returning? What's the WAR of the guys who are returning? Positive 7.4. So this new front office not only is getting rid of the guys who were mostly contributing to the problem, but they're also keeping the guys who are really not much of a problem at all. They just have some things that they need to be tweaked or other small changes that could make them better baseball players. But overall, they were better than replacement level players. Those are the guys the Rockies are keeping in 2026. Another incredible sign. Then you add in the FWAR, okay, of the guys who you just added. Okay, it's only about 2 wins above replacement, which is not incredible. But again, think back to the fact that a guy like Castro had a 0.5 FWAR in 2025. This was a 3 FWAR in 2024. Jake McCarthy, negative 1 FWAR in 2025. 2024, this was 2.9. Edward Julian, negative 0.8 FWAR in 2025. 2023, just 2 years ago, this was 2.9 also. Okay? So you really have a lot to like. If you can get Castro, Julian, and McCarthy to even show some more shades of who they were in like the last 1 or 2 years, now that they're healthy, hopefully, this 1.9 could easily be 4 or 5 F4 that you just added this offseason. And what does this all mean? Well, what it means is that 2025, the Rockies won 43 games. 2026, if you remove the contributions of the guys who are leaving, you keep the contributions of the guys who are staying, and you add in the guys who you just added to the team this offseason, well, you get a 63-win team if you start with the starting point of 43 wins from last season. If you remove the guys who I don't think will play most of the games for this team in 2026, although they'll be on the 40-man roster, and you really get down to who I think the core 26-man group would be, assuming they're all healthy, you get a 66-win team in 2026. All in all, that's a 23-win improvement and stops the streak of 100-loss seasons in 2026. That's a major year one improvement for this organization. And the crazy thing is, I just walked you through it. It's more than possible. It's more than plausible. Okay? 66 and 96? Yeah, that would be the Rockies' record in 2026. If we were to just take this projection. We'll get into the current 40-man roster and my predicted season lineups next week. But I wanted to walk us through what has happened so far this offseason, what the current situation is so far with this organization, and why you should be a lot more excited for this team. Because if they can make a 23-win improvement just by making very common sense decisions and taking chances on guys who could potentially contribute to this actually being a 70-win season if they play up to their maximum potential that they've shown in recent years. I mean, the Diamondbacks were a really bad team in 2021. Okay, I think they won like 47 games. 2023, they made the World Series. Not saying the Rockies are in that exact same situation, but they're in a very similar situation. And what we've seen is that smart front office moves and good coaching with players that have flash potential or have potential is usually a method and a formula for building a team that can be competitive sooner than later, like Warren Schaefer said. So when you hear Warren Schaefer say, well, I think you'll be surprised that we can bring winning baseball to Coors Field a lot sooner than people think. He's not just blowing smoke. The numbers actually suggest that that's reasonable. Okay, and so that's the note I want to leave us on today's episode. So thank you all for listening. I know this was a longer stream than usual. Obviously, we had 2 weeks worth of Nuggets content to talk about. We had a lot to talk about with the Rockies, but hope you enjoyed today's discussion. Hope you enjoy this new format that we're kind of working into here, being super analytically driven, so we can give you guys the whole picture of the Nuggets and the Rockies and their situation, and help you to be a more informed fan who knows what they're looking for out on the field or on the court. And so I hope you enjoy these shows. We will see you next week. Till then, have fun watching the Denver Nuggets play. Keep tracking the Rockies as they continue to make moves, and we'll see you next week. Well, actually, let's take a look at these comments real quick, because I see Steven. Steven's in here. What's up? Good to see Steve is on a live show. Good to see him in here. All right. This is his first comment. I really like how everyone said that we have acquired this offseason. I really like how everyone that we have acquired this offseason, minus Julian, has a positive F4. Goodness gracious. All right. That was a fun sentence to read, Steve. Well, yeah, minus Julian, but I mean, there's a lot to like about, I'm just for you, Steve, just because the main man himself is in here, I'm going to go show you what I'm talking about with Julian, man, because there's a lot to like even about Julian. And I think you could get a lot more out of him going into 2025 than you'd gotten from him in 2024 and 2025 and 2024, right? Okay, take a look at this. I'm going to share my screen again. I'll stop that screen share. We're going to share this. This is his Baseball Savant page. All right, take a look at this. Okay, this is 2023. This is when he was a rookie. All right, he had an incredible year. 263, 16 home runs. All right, solid rookie campaign. Look at what he's good at. He's good at barreling the ball, good at that launch angle sweet spot. So he's good at making solid contact at the right part of the bat that generates optimal launch angle. Take a look at his chase rate. Doesn't chase. Walk rate. Doesn't walk. Okay. Obviously, he was good at some other things in here, like hard hit rate. But overall, you see 2024, 2025, significantly worse. Hit 200 here in 24, 220 in 2025. The power just wasn't there. Look at 2024. You didn't have enough games to qualify, but look, above average barrel rate, above average sweet spot, launch angle, above average chase rate, above average walk rate. Same type of player. Same thing in 2025. Barrel, sweet spot, chase, walk. So he's the same type of hitter that he was in 2023, but for whatever reason, the production just wasn't there. So there's a lot of reasons to be super excited about even Julien, even though he's really, I guess besides McCarthy had a -4 in 2025 also. Besides McCarthy, who has a really good shot to be solid. But yeah, your other comment here, -10 WAR. Dude, yeah. That's just ridiculous. And so you see the front office getting rid of some of these guys, even some of the younger guys who had lots of potential for this team. At least we thought they did going back to recent years. And then you see all these guys that they're getting rid of now. And it's like, I mean, they're not good. They're young, but like -10 combined, it's just not good. Okay. Not good. So yeah, thank you for those comments, Steve. Good to see you in here. With that said, now that we've talked about that, we'll see y'all next week. Have a phenomenal week watching the Nuggets, and we'll see y'all next Saturday. Take care.